I'll readily admit that looking back at that particular Monday morning from a year ago, I wasn't exactly in the highest of spirits. My partner, Sheila, used to share my intense passion for closeness, especially after we both decided to retire the previous year at the age of 60, she concluding her career in teaching and myself finishing my tenure with the British Transport Police. Indeed, our romantic encounters weren't an everyday event as with some overly enthusiastic pairs, but they started off quite regularly, sometimes even occurring twice within the same day. Yet by that Monday a year on, it had become difficult to remember the last time we had such a moment together. Sheila thought my lack of engaging activities contributed to my boredom, which then fueled my depression, and this depression in turn zapped my energy and interest in being intimate. On the other hand, I held a different view. My gloominess originated from our scarce sexual encounters, although I felt she might not see this as an issue, presenting a perplexing situation for me. If she wasn't desiring closeness, why did it appear she didn't miss it as much as I did? And if she was seeking it from elsewhere, where and when could this be taking place? Consider that Monday, for instance. She had made plans to be downtown, catching up with Sally, a friend from her high school years, over coffee, but was this merely a casual catch-up? Indeed it was. I followed her discreetly and watched as they met and went to their favorite cafe, continuing a routine they had for the last 3 weeks. Upon her return, she stopped for some shopping, with each item bought accounted for by receipts listing the exact date, time and price. Coming from a police background, checking these details came naturally to me. On Thursday nights, as she went to her pottery class, I would hang around the bar next to the community center, monitoring her coming and going, which always happened on schedule. I even sneaked a glance once and saw her making a pot, which now, finished and glazed, stands before me as though taunting my doubts. There seemed no plausible chance for her to have an affair without my knowledge, yet I was tormented by the sensation that she was finding contentment elsewhere. This realization of everything falling into neat alignment, or the moment of truth, struck on the following Wednesday. To elaborate, Wednesday in our home is designated for laundry. That Wednesday, as I was waking, Sheila came out of the bathroom with a pile of blue towels, mentioned she was going to wash them, and asked if I could swap out the towels in our bathrooms with the purple set. Our routine was simple. She would alternate between the blue and purple towels weekly, ensuring they were regularly changed. I obliged her request and continued with my day, helping with the laundry and pondering over the persistent suspicion of her potential adultery. While carrying out these tasks, a doubt began to crystallize, though still vague. Around 11 a.m. we took a break for coffee. Settling on a chaise lounge in our backyard, I observed as the first load of laundry, including the blue bath and hand towels, was hung out to dry. Among them, subtly placed at the edge near the house, dangled a lone white bath sheet. The noise in the back of my mind was now frantically jumping and waving, screaming in an attempt to grab my full attention. How did a white towel end up in the laundry if it hadn't been in the bathroom hamper? I would have noticed. It hadn't been used in either bathroom. There was no need for it. In fact, we keep 2 old white towels exclusively for outdoor use during summer for when the grandchildren play in the inflatable pool. It was March, and those towels should have been tucked away in the back of the closet by now. Could it be possible that she was engaging in an affair within our home, finding it easier to cover up by using the towels instead of leaving evident marks on the bed sheets? It definitely wasn't in our bed. I've been sleeping soundly of late, but I'm almost sure I would have noticed if she had been intimate with someone else in our bed. Then it dawned on me, another epiphany. Oh, it's all making sense now. My exhaustion isn't rooted in sadness, it stems from her poisoning me. You seem deep in thought, my dear, she said, disrupting my focused musings. Indeed, I've been untangling this complex mystery for a while now, which has proven quite the challenge, but everything is starting to make sense. I replied. That's great, darling. Keeping your mind sharp is crucial, she remarked, with an air of disinterest, and went back to her book and coffee. My thoughts were indeed racing, but I kept that to myself. Thus, I start to unravel the misconduct. The perpetrator, her, administers Rohypnol to the target, myself, and then ushers in her clandestine lover, a yet-to-be-identified individual, into our house for their secret meetings. Rohypnol, it now makes sense. 3 months back, we began a new evening ritual where she serves me a tiny whiskey nightcap at 9:30 p.m., followed by our prescriptions at 10 p.m., a mild sleep aid for her, cholesterol treatment for me, and multivitamins for the both of us. She suggested that taking our medications just before sleep would enhance their memorability and effectiveness. I intended to scrutinize my medication when the opportunity arose, but if my suspicions are correct, I grasped the methodology and roughly the location, but the identity. Surely it can't be that irritating overweight bother from next door, can it? Perhaps I initially overlooked the introductions, so with more characters coming into play, it's time for additional specifics. My identity is Mark Smith, once Inspector Smith until I retired 2 years ago at 60. I would have ascended to Chief Inspector had it not been for a mishap early in my career when a suspect laughed as I apprehended him for causing harm to his partner's wrist. Regrettably, he suffered 2 falls down a flight of stairs. Nothing was substantiated, but it effectively stunted my professional progression. Thus, transitioning to the British Transport Police as a detective inspector for the latter 5 years was a deliberate move, benefiting my retirement. My physical well-being has been solid, yet I've experienced abnormal lethargy. However, if my theories hold true, this is about to alter. I am 5 feet tall, fairly handsome, and I have a strong aversion to untruthfulness. Sheila, my wife, stands at 5'A", is dainty with a slender rather than full figure, possesses lengthy dark hair, and green eyes that augment her attractive features. Our neighbors include an elderly couple we rarely see, and on the other side Julie and the annoyance, initially named Justin presumably to merge with the other insignificant parasites at his investment company. I labeled him an annoyance, though my spouse contended he was quite friendly upon better acquaintance. Perhaps she was more acquainted with him than I realized. Julie, on the other hand, was delightful. We had known her first spouse for a brief period, before a sickness took him. She commendably raised their twins alone until they left for college. Subsequently, I believe she felt the impact of the empty nest syndrome profoundly, and within 2 years, the annoyance made his way into her life, her bedroom, and eventually her home. He has been living with her for 5 years, married for 3. At that moment, my estimate was that Julie might be in her early 50s. She's petite, slim, visually appealing and easy to talk to. I could listen to her husky voice for hours were she to sing. She'd surely be a blues legend. Justin stands about 5 feet 8 inches tall and maintains his fitness by driving his Audi to the gym. Quite the exhibitionist. He exudes a friendly demeanor, yet a closer listen reveals his sarcastic arrogance. He considers himself much smarter than he appears, assuming others don't notice, yet I've met individuals far more astute than him. He's refined but resembles fresh dog droppings. Upon reflection, I truly don't like him, and frankly I doubt he has any fondness for me either. Thus I have a plausible theory regarding the who, how, and where, but I lack proof to verify it. The matter of the medication is clear. I'm not yet deceased, so I'll proceed with life as usual, though under my own terms. On Thursday night, my partner left the house at 6:30 p.m., following her usual schedule, to attend a pottery workshop from 7 to 9 p.m., and she got back around 9:30 p.m. Once she was gone, I retrieved a set of nitrile gloves from a container in our garage and began a thorough search of our residence. My objective: to find anything out of place, whether it was something missing or something extra. In our everyday lives, oddities catch our attention. But it's precisely these irregularities, no matter how insignificant, that are revelatory when you're deliberately looking. I started with the pills first, those she had given me, claiming they were vitamins, which I discovered were actually prescription sedatives, just as I had suspected. The information leaflet warned not to mix them with alcohol. I had thrown them away the previous evening and woke up feeling refreshed. For the next few hours, I meticulously searched each room, making sure I didn't leave behind any signs of my investigation. It was crucial that she remained oblivious to my snooping. Eventually, I determined there were no signs of sexual activity in any of the spare bedrooms. The bedding was clean and seemed to have been ironed recently. I knew those sheets hadn't been washed recently. They hadn't been placed on the beds. Unfortunately, I found no evidence in our bedroom either, which was exactly why I was so angry. The evidence was found on a chaise longue at the back of the house. Hidden in the cushions of the 3-seat sofa, I discovered a piece of foil, likely from a textured condom wrapper, a type I have never used. That's when it clicked where their rendezvous probably took place on the sofa, with a towel underneath to catch the, well, let's just say fluids. That image desperately needs to be forgotten. Presumably, she throws the towel in the wash and then crawls back into our bed. My marriage is definitively over, no question about it. I could divorce her without needing evidence of her infidelity, but it would be so unsatisfying. While someone else enjoys the pleasures of intimacy, I am left wanting. Vengeance seems only fair. I've never considered myself to be vindictive. I can overlook many minor offenses, but not a betrayal of this magnitude. It calls for a severe response, and I couldn't wait to create havoc. In the days that followed, shrouded in quiet and planning my next move, I observed that my wife paid no attention to how I was feeling. Looking back, I realized I didn't have much affection for her either. Yet, I am the only one aware that our divorce is inevitable. Thus, every night I would smile, accept my vitamins and secretly get rid of them as soon as her back was turned. It was around midnight, either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, when her phone's vibration woke me. I stayed motionless, feeling her get up and leave the room. I heard the sound of the linen closet door opening and closing on the landing, then silence. Despite all my tough talk, I felt sick to my stomach. I knew I could go downstairs to catch her in the act, but I had no interest in seeing or hearing it happen. I could have barged in, making it awkward for them, but I wanted more than just to make them uncomfortable. I could physically attack the other man, but then they would play the victims, and I would likely end up in jail. Remember, I was a police officer every year presented 365 chances for some criminal to try to make a name by taking me down. With my luck, the assailant would end up dead, and I'd be lucky to spend my remaining years in solitary confinement, surrounded by child offenders. So if I wanted a truly fitting revenge, I had to let them think they were still undetected. That meant letting that man be with my wife until I decided it was time to intervene. No way, that wasn't going to happen. I had an extra house alarm keypad installed under my nightstand. To sneak the guy in, Sheila had to turn off the alarm. I gave them a moment to settle in. I guess I'm a romantic at heart, and then I hit the panic button. Yes, I was the one who pressed it, and the chaos it caused in our home deeply affected me. The effect on Justin was unimaginable. It definitely ruined his plans for a romantic evening as he was seen leaping to safety from the back of our house. The alarm had gone off. Presumably, Sheila rushed to deactivate it at the main panel. She seemed to have a basic grasp of the alarm system, knowing only how to turn it on and off. I had tried to teach her its workings when we first got it, but she found it confusing, so I stopped. I suspected she might think she accidentally set it off. I heard the sound of the linen closet opening and closing before she came back to our bedroom. I couldn't resist the urge to tease her. "Have you just gotten here?" I asked, feigning annoyance. "Where were you? Is it that late already?" She responded sharply. "I had to go down to turn off the alarm." "What set it off?" I asked, pretending not to know. "It doesn't go off unless someone is downstairs. I'll check it out." "No," she interrupted loudly. "You shouldn't go down in your—" She hesitated, about to comment on my current state. She knew that trying to go downstairs while medicated could at best lead to calling an ambulance, at worst a trip to the hospital, revealing a lot of problems. She smartly deduced that I had already been downstairs, which caused the alarm to go off without anyone else being there. After checking all the doors and windows, she suggested I go to bed. I did, and slept well for the rest of the weekend. Sheila remained innocent, and I agonized for long minutes whenever she showered, glancing at a message on her phone. I had helped set up the lock screen, so even though my fingerprint wouldn't work, I knew her backup security code. Their arrogance was clear, planning secret meetings through text, exposing two things: they had drugged Julie with Rohypnol, and they were utterly unaware. By Sunday evening, both the plotter and his accomplice had gotten over the anxiety of Saturday night and planned to meet at 11:30 on Tuesday night. This filled me with glee. My plan needed little preparation, as long as I could talk to Julie first. On Monday, she went to see Sally as usual, and Justin's car was gone from the neighbor's drive. I hoped Julie would be working from home, as she often did. That was indeed the case. "Hi, Mark," she greeted me warmly, but her smile faded when she saw my serious look. "What's wrong? You seem really serious." "Julie, I'm sorry, but we need to talk, and there's not much time." "What's going on?" she asked. "I'll give you a brief now, but can we meet up casually outside the library at 2:30 to go into it in more detail?" Sure, she agreed. "But tell me the gist now." So I told her about the exhaustion, the new routine of whiskey and pills, the change in sedatives, and the cheating. "You bastard," she cursed. I suspected he was cheating with someone, but I didn't know how. Would it surprise you to know Justin gives me a bit of sherry every night to calm my nerves, with a vitamin to boost my immunity? No wonder I always feel slightly off. How angry are you? I asked because I want out of this relationship, but I'd be in jail if I did what they truly deserve. I agree, she said simply. I can kick the little jerk out, but I want him to really suffer. I have a plan, I revealed, and if it's done right, we'll come off as the victims, and they'll get what's coming to them. I'm with you, she stated. I haven't even told you the details yet, doesn't matter, as long as it hurts them. I'm in it was the first time I had been alone with this woman, and I instantly respected her beautiful, smart, and vengeful. What's not to like? I laid out my plan. It was simple. Required almost no lies or staged events, and the police would do the heavy lifting. Okay, she said, give me the rest of the morning to think about it, and I'll catch up with you later for an informal chat. Oh, and I added as I was leaving, if the police asked, the last time we talked was about an extra printer cable. I'll pick it up in town after lunch, she smiled. Sorry, I can't help you there. See you later. With that, I left. We met again after lunch, and I gave her the cable I had picked up. The old one had been accidentally thrown away. Honestly, there was little left to say. My strategy was direct and achievable. The main hurdles were to avoid doing or saying anything clever to our cheating partners so they wouldn't catch on to us, and to agree to take our drug drinks on Monday and Tuesday nights, but on our terms, appearing as the unsuspecting partners we seemed to be. On Tuesday, I decided to clean out the garage. My frustration grew as I saw evidence of Sheila gearing up for yet another secret meeting at my place, so I tried to keep my cool and stay away from her. She dusted and tidied the sunroom, where I spotted a fresh towel in the linen cupboard, evidently set aside for their lounging needs. I chose not to reach out to Julie again, understanding it was vital our next steps appeared ordinary. That evening at 10, Sheila handed me a hefty whiskey, along with my pills, watching me take them before heading back to fetch hers. I discreetly spit out the pills and hid the sedative, only swallowing my cholesterol medicine with a gulp of whiskey. This way my toxicology results would align. By 10:30, drowsiness was expected of me, so I slightly exaggerated my sleepiness, claiming I could hardly keep my eyes open until she suggested I head to bed. I obliged but lay awake, puzzled over her belief that such behavior was justifiable towards me after almost 40 years and raising 2 children together. This betrayal and drugging within my own home felt barbaric. Roughly 15 minutes later, I heard her settle into bed, and I feigned sleep. After confirming my sleep, she moved to the bathroom, and I listened as she showered, brushed her teeth, and then the sound of the toilet flushing. I then took the sedative I'd saved and feigned sleep more convincingly. At 11:30, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I mimicked a light snore, as though slightly stirred, then lay still, calming my breath. I overheard her quietly exit the bed, fetch a towel, and head downstairs, repeating her prior actions. Her cell phone remained by the bed. Who was she intending to call? Shortly after, her phone received another text. Despite the situation, I couldn't help but smile. It was a message from Julie, questioning why Justin was at our sunroom's door, wondering if we were okay. I left Sheila's phone untouched, shocked and confused. Then my phone buzzed again, Julie calling. I didn't answer, yet it was evident I was not asleep. I tiptoed downstairs, silent as a ghost, pausing in the kitchen by the door, left slightly open. Their intimacy was audible, stirring within me revulsion and fury. Why did I deserve this? If she no longer loved me, she could simply leave. But why him specifically? A dim desk. Lamp illuminated the sunroom, aided by the oven's LED light, allowing me to see clearly enough to grab the rolling pin from the counter where I'd placed it. Should the police inquire, my defense would be my location in the kitchen, amidst numerous other potential weapons. However, I had to linger there until she unwittingly granted me one final favor as a spouse. Her cry, "No, don't stop, please don't stop," was the exact cue I needed. I stormed in, shouting, "Get off my wife, you coward!" With and tuts sincerity, "And don't worry, darling, I'll protect you," without meaning it. He jerked back, resembling a shocked meerkat, and I delivered a powerful blow to his head with the rolling pin. He stumbled awkwardly, and with my senses dulled by the drug, my follow-up strike was heavier than intended. He collapsed like a tree felled, landing atop my cheating wife. Through the window, Julie's face. appeared as I played out my final act. "Are you all right, dear?" I murmured, as she began to scream. "Don't fret. He can't harm you now." Then I gently fell onto them, pinning her beneath her paramour's body, and simulated unconsciousness. Eventually, the drugs genuinely took effect, and my pretense became reality. Julie later recounted that around 10, as was their custom, Justin served her a large sherry and a vitamin for her immune health. She consumed both, yet soon after had a coughing spree in the restroom and threw up in the basin. She kept it from her husband, who was engrossed in TV, merely yelling down that she was retiring early. He later joined her in bed, but eventually left, following the sound of a door shutting. When he failed to return, she called out for him, receiving no reply. Groggy and perplexed, she peered out her bedroom window and observed him in the yard near the patio entrances, facing our conservatory. She messaged Sheila to ensure we were fine, then rang me when Sheila failed to respond. Disregarding her own phone afterward, she chose to investigate the situation herself. Trailing Justin into our backyard, she was shocked to witness through the conservatory glass her spouse with my partner on the couch. Stunned yet enraged by his deceit, she filmed them until I stumbled into the scene, evidently drunk and believing my spouse was being attacked by an unknown assailant. I hit Justin in the head, then fell to the ground. At this juncture she ceased filming, dialed 911, and alerted the dispatcher that the location required police and 2 ambulance units. I counseled her to adhere to honesty whenever feasible and not to sway the police in their investigation, emphasizing that the detectives should justify their wages. If they perform their roles diligently, justice will naturally be served. Her account was almost entirely truthful, except for the detail that the signs of coughing and vomiting were self-induced. A paramedic woke me, trying to grasp my attention. I was dazed and weary, but knew action was necessary, though the specifics eluded me. "Ah, yes, my partner," I murmured. "Is she all right? Was she injured?" "She's fine," he assured. "She's presently conversing with the police." I then lapsed back into unconsciousness. Awakening again, I found myself under the vigilant gaze of a doctor and a uniformed police officer in a hospital. Uncertain of the time, I listened as the doctor voiced concern about my alertness, suggesting possible influence by drugs or alcohol. He recommended a blood test, to which I consented, stating, "Go ahead, doctor. I've nothing to hide." After giving my sample, I fell back into sleep. The next day, around 9 a.m., I gradually awoke to see another officer at the door, a young man in his early 20s. "How are you feeling, sir?" he asked gently. "I think so," I answered, though I'm unsure why I'm here. "I must leave the explanations to my superior," he stated, acknowledging his own uncertainty. Shortly after, a nurse came in, saw I was awake, and kindly offered me tea and toast, to which I expressed my gratitude towards the NHS. As she checked my vitals, the officer momentarily exited, quietly conversing on his walkie-talkie, and resumed as he came back in. The nurse then departed to prepare my belated breakfast, while the officer came near, informing me of his superior's imminent arrival, currently tied up with another case but expected to be here soon. He examined me, asking if I was prepared to wait. I answered with a crooked grin, our silent agreement that any attempt to leave would lead to my arrest, complicating matters and possibly leading to breakfast in cuffs. "Let's keep things cordial, shall we?" I proposed, earning a smile of agreement from him, grateful for my cooperation as it made his job easier. Then, seizing an opportunity, he excused himself to speak with a nurse passing by before resuming his seat, leisurely flipping through a Country Life magazine found by the door. Noticing my intrigued look, he mentioned he had just apprised her of my soon-to-be arrest, joking that we'd both enjoy some tea shortly. As promised, 10 minutes later I was having toast and we were both sipping tea, lamenting over the poor performance of the English cricket team in the second test against Australia. An hour later, I was in a police station interview room, held on suspicion of inflicting bodily harm. The interviewer introduced himself and repeated the warning, asking if I grasped the severity. Recognizing the situation's seriousness, aware of the harsh consequences if convicted, I affirmed my comprehension. He requested a recount of the prior evening's events. I gave a mostly honest narrative. My wife had given me a drink and some tablets, and weariness had sent me to sleep. Later awakening to find her missing from both our bed and the washroom, I went to check a disturbance downstairs, where I found a man attacking my wife, who was screaming for help. I recall hitting him, but afterwards my memory fails me until the doctor woke me. "How is my partner?" I asked, but received no direct response, though there was a faint mention that she was fine. His look was deep and thoughtful as he said, "She's been arrested too." "You landed on the other person, pinning her down. When they managed to pull you apart and free her, she tried to attack you with the same rolling pin you used." This news disturbed me deeply, making my shock genuine. "He was trying to harm her, right? You don't know who he is?" he asked. My lack of recognition was true. It was dark, and his back was to me. My mind was also in disarray. "I can barely remember anything," he said softly. "This involves your wife and her lover, your neighbor, Mr. Justin Clark." My reaction was to simply stare, knowing that showing shock or any overdone emotion would be more disconcerting, so I remained silent, trying to reconcile the shocking revelation with my disbelief that it could be true. "You were unaware, weren't you?" he inquired. I confirmed with a nod. Thinking of her aloofness, I realized she had no chance to explain, did she? Even during our times apart, I kept tabs on her movements. It dawned on me that perhaps it was my depression driving her away, not her infidelity. "So to sum up," I continued, "I'm under arrest on suspicion of inflicting grievous bodily harm, yet the person I believed was attacking my spouse was actually her secret lover, my married neighbor." "Exactly," he agreed. "I suppose I ought to ask about his state," I suggested. He frowned. "He's been placed into a medically induced coma. The hit resulted in a small but critical brain hemorrhage. It's not deadly at the moment, but it's serious." I took a moment of silence to think. "A moment later, I'd be interested in your health background," he suggested. "We'll check with your family doctor, of course, but could you tell me about any medications you're taking?" I mentioned the cholesterol-lowering drugs and vitamins my partner had insisted I take. He got up. "You're still under arrest, but no charges are filed yet as we continue to investigate. I think you understand what." This means our smiles conveyed mutual comprehension before he dressed in his uniform and led me to the holding cell. I didn't protest or resist. There was much to be done. Evidence needed to be collected and examined. I felt calm and untroubled. Why resist? The investigation into the severe injuries I inflicted on Justin proceeded efficiently. Evidence gathering and forensic examinations were conducted with precision. Within a week, it was discovered that Julie and I had been systematically and deceitfully poisoned with a prescribed medication purportedly for my wife's non-existent insomnia for over 3 months. An examination of the vomit in Julie's bathroom sink trap revealed traces of the medication mislabeled as vitamins given to both of us. The only fingerprints found on the medication bottles belonged to Justin and Sheila. This pair had been administering the drugs to both of us, causing initial signs of liver damage in Julie, thankfully detected before becoming irreversible. Julie's recordings and our phone records supported our stories, and when my blood tests showed high levels of sedation during my conflict with Justin, the police shifted their focus. The scrutiny of the couple's communications unmistakably demonstrated their plan to drug Julie and me while carrying on their affair. Justin gloated over his liaisons with my wife in our house while I was asleep upstairs. He felt overlooked by me and sought revenge in this manner. Considering the tone of some of my wife's messages, I regretted not hitting him with a rolling pin as well. The case intensified when Julie gave the police complete access to her house, as did I, since we had nothing to hide. In their search for digital evidence that Julie and I had orchestrated that night's events, it emerged that the unscrupulous man had been embezzling his investors' money and was planning a major scam before escaping to a nation without an extradition treaty. They uncovered a variety of fascinating accounts on a laptop hidden in the guest room, some of which were registered under my partner's name. She suspected they planned to run off with our assets, while he entertained similar suspicions but didn't see her in his eventual scheme, though he counted on using her financial resources as well as mine. I was keenly awaiting the moment when the authorities would break the news to her. In the end, both were charged with administering poison intending to cause injury, harm, or annoyance to another person pursuant to Section 24 of the Offences Against the Person Act 1861, with a potential sentence of up to 5 years imprisonment. Additionally, they were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. Despite Sheila's lack of employment in the finance industry, her messages with Justin revealed her complete understanding and active participation. The most severe punishment for this crime was a decade behind bars. Justin was moved directly from the medical facility to the police detention, and both were closely examined prior to their court appearance. My partner was handed a 2-year sentence for abuse of position and another 2 years for the intention to defraud, with both sentences to run concurrently. He received 3 years for the abuse that led to Julie's liver damage and 5 years for the fraudulent act. Julie had worked tirelessly with the police to track down every penny he had. For him, there was a glimmer of hope. The prison healthcare workers were hopeful that he would regain his normal speech by the time he was released. However, what kind of work he would secure after his release remained uncertain, given that the police had confiscated most of his possessions under the Proceeds of Crime Act, and even his old friends were reluctant to hire him in any financial role. The narrative did not conclude there. After the police verified we were victims and I was not implicated, I reached out to my connections in the national press. Opting for a dignified silence, Julie and I felt profoundly betrayed by those we had put our trust in and needed time for introspection. The press overwhelmingly portrayed us in a favorable light. Sheila and Justin faced universal condemnation, with no one coming to their defense. Julie's allure was so strong that it was unfathomable to many why Justin would choose the companionship of anyone else over hers. Conversely, I didn't garner as much sympathy. Our offspring attended the entire court proceedings. I was unable to be with them until after delivering my testimony, which took merely 20 minutes. The evidence brought forth was compelling forensic evidence: the analysis of my blood, the harm done to Julie's liver, the contaminated vitamin containers, the incriminating text messages, and the financial probes. Her decision to plead not guilty, influenced by Justin, remained an enigma to me. Their texts virtually confessed to their offenses. He believed he was being astute, but the plain facts laid out in court caused my daughter to cut ties with her mother permanently. She messaged her in detention, ordering her not to contact, write to, or visit her or the kids. Should she attempt it, they would seek a restraining order. Given her conviction for poisoning, this was especially hard for my son, who had been close to his mother. He asked if I would be upset if he visited her in prison to hear her side. If that's what you feel, son, I advised you should do it, or you'll live with regret. Yet prepare for disappointment. His visit took place a few weeks later. He called me that night saying, "Dad, you were right, he was let down." But now he had no regrets about cutting ties with her. Her every statement disturbed him more than the last. She pointed fingers at me for undervaluing her, for my complacency, for not securing a higher social status. In her view, none of it was her fault. She claimed to be exploited in her vulnerable state, influenced by him. It was his scheme to medicate Julie and me, his plan to transfer our finances to his foreign account. Then she dramatically claimed, "I have so much to explain to make your father take me back," she confessed to him. "Mum, you poisoned him to be with the man he detested in his own home while he lay unconscious from drugs upstairs, taking you back. If he ever sees you again, he's more likely to shoot you," claiming self-defense. It appears her obliviousness so astounded the boy that he felt compelled to elaborate further. He inquired if she was aware that the disparaging text she had sent to that naive neighbor had been seen by him. "Correct," he asked her. "Presently, my biggest regret is my ignorance of your relationship with Justin. Sooner it would have enabled me to address you directly rather than risking jail time to shield you from what I believed was a menace, all while you and your disreputable companion ridiculed me behind my back. I chose to keep my humiliation private and refrained from making it a public issue." Their split was anything but friendly, actually. The terms were as stringent as those he had set for his sister: absolutely no phone calls, no written correspondence, no visits. She had forfeited herself, respect and good name, along with her husband, daughter, son, and grandchildren, all due to a shameful involvement with a con artist. A significant portion of her finances had also vanished. When I initiated the divorce proceedings while she was under investigation, I liquidated our house and evenly divided our possessions between us. She possessed enough assets to make her ineligible for pro bono legal aid, necessitating the engagement of a costly attorney for her hopeless defense. Additionally, I sued her for the psychological pain her continuous malevolent behavior caused, among other things. By her release, she would be left with just her pension and not much else. Julie ended things with Justin, knowing well if he expected to inherit half of their residence, he was sorely mistaken. Julie and her former spouse had created a trust for their twins, granting Julie the right to reside there for the rest of her life. Conversely, Justin had no legal right to it and could end up in a precarious financial situation. Julie and I were frequently in the public eye, striving to present ourselves merely as unfortunate casualties of two detestable ex-partners. When the attention became unbearable, I opted for a retreat to an isolated villa in the south of France, while Julie sought solitude with a friend in a similarly remote area of the same region. This period highlighted our mutual trust, a crucial development after enduring treachery. Our relationship evolved from friendship to romance, and eventually I allocated my share from the property sale into savings and moved in with Julie. My children are fond of her, and her twins reciprocate the sentiment towards me. Unlike Justin, we are not wed and may never tie the knot, but I am proud to regard her as my life partner, trusting she would be candid with me should she ever grow weary of our union. I believe she wouldn't betray me, and she's aware I hold the same conviction. This story commenced with my despondency over a lack of closeness, and Julie suggested a way to make amends, considering her ex was at the root of my woes. Our connection solidified during our initial getaway in France. Julie is an exceptionally passionate individual. It baffles me how anyone could forsake her for a less engaging partner. Nowadays, we both consume the right health supplements, and Julie has stopped drinking to support her liver's healing, a choice I've adopted to extend our collective lifespan. I've previously called Julie beautiful, smart, and someone who harbors resentments, and my fondness for her was real, even if it appeared semi-jocular at the time. Now, my affection is entirely earnest. She endured her partner's death from sickness, single-handedly raised 2 kids, and navigated through deception, yet she remains capable of giving love, cherishing me despite my flaws. Indeed, she's extraordinary. Dear audience, I welcome your views in the comment section and kindly ask you to hit like, share, and subscribe.